an unbelievable round 19. But over to you, Nathan.
Well, let's crack right into it, Gaz. The first thing I want to talk about is on-field leadership, and I reckon Geelong have the best on-field leaders, and their performance was pretty strong over the weekend. The senior coach and the coaching panel is important, but you've got Isaac Smith, Selwood, Guthrie, Hawkins, Duncan, Tui, Blitzavs, and Stewart, who's not there. So you got that's as deep as anyone goes. I think Melbourne have got a deep leadership group. I think Collingwood have got a deep leadership group. Brisbane and Western Bulldogs is a little skinnier from the outside looking in. But direction and execution, game awareness, and knowing what needs to be done at the right times is where this on-field leadership really kicks in.
And could there be a greater or more stark example of what happens when you haven't got it than what happened after Jones missed the kick for Essendon in terms of on-field leadership and the capacity to make sure that players' heads remain in the game and in the moment?
Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll see that behind the goals with you guys on the couch tonight. Second, I thought from the same game, Charlie Dixon, what's he worth to Port Adelaide? And certain players in teams that just unlock the rest of the team's performance, and they're so, I suppose, relied upon because they didn't have Charlie Dixon for this first run when they were 0-5, and it's impacted their season. It's spiritual leadership. In the third quarter, he had 11 disposals, 5 marks, kicked a couple of goals, but above all, it was his attitude that really drove Port to that comeback in the third.
Yeah, so what I loved about that, and then so there's great examples of a player in this instance saying, I refuse to allow what is happening continue.
Yep.
So Charlie Dixon came out and said, no, not on my watch.
Yeah.
And then at the start of the last quarter, Tom Atkins made a similar decision. He said, no.
Didn't he?
I'm not turning around and waiting for danger. I'm not going to wait for Joel. Not on my watch will we lose this game. That's what I love about footballers and who's got the capacity to do that. So great example.
Third, I've got the highlights. Goal of the year nominations, mark of the year nominations. We've sort of spoken about the game becoming a little bit staid. We've got to give opportunities for the players' talents to be showcased, and this weekend was huge. I think we saw some amazing highlights over the course of the 9 games. Adam Saad's mark had Jamarra Ugle-Hagan's goal towards the end. It was like we saw some rippers, and we're going to come back with that.
Who said give Georgiades a car there? And then it was a great mark.
Was it a Port? It was probably an Adelaide commentator.
Oh, no, I'm not getting at that. No. I'm just saying whoever said that, and then you got to go back and go, oh, no, give Green the car.
Yeah,
and then you go, oh, no, maybe Saad takes the car.
But I think we've had people lamenting the state of the game, and that maybe we don't see the unique talents of players come to the fore because it becomes such a team contest, and it can become dour at times. But I think this weekend and the footy in recent times, this year's been really good. We've seen some amazing skills come to the fore. On that, my fourth one is Adam Saad and his growth as a player. His game on the weekend, he's just become a massive weapon. Obviously Sam Docherty's had a great year as well, but he's become a massive weapon for Carlton off the back, and he's just continued to improve as a footballer. He's nearing 150 games. When he played for Gold Coast, he used to, you remember those 3-4 bounce efforts, he'd just go hell for leather. He'd cough up a lung and he'd be gone. The next 3 minutes he wouldn't have any impact at all. So he's grown as a player, 48 games at the Suns, 61 at Essendon, and now 33 at Carlton. He's becoming a real weapon. He's balanced his offense, the defense with the offense now, and he's kicking. He's like a surgeon off the back. The way that he gets involved in games of footy, he's a really high impact player now that I'm sure the Blues fans are loving to see.
You're an All-Australian select, aren't you?
I am.
So you can't talk about it, but the debate will rage about this back group and how you're going to narrow them down.
Well, there's plenty. Sinclair from
Stewart,
St Kilda's had a ripper.
Bloston, Brayshaw, Saad, Sinclair, Docherty, Dacos, Maynard, Dale. It's not a bad group.
Yeah, and maybe two, maybe 3 of those guys.
Hardwick. From
Hardwick
from
a little bit deeper as a stopper, but there's plenty, and that is
Lizard.
why Lizard's been great. There's the All-Australian selection. I've sat in one meeting. We've got another one coming up in a few weeks. And there's a plethora of choices, and it's overwhelming really when you're trying to analyse the strength of a season and the contribution of individuals to their teams. Lastly, when you get to execute a skill, that becomes an execution of basics is basically what decides games. And when you look at Jamie Elliott's finish compared to the Jones miss only 25, 30 seconds earlier, that game, the 4 points was on the line with that, and it was fascinating viewing. It was amazing vision, and when Billy took that mark, he didn't turn around.
I was going to ask you about this. So
if he'd have missed the goal,
so he turned his back, and the siren hadn't sounded. But so I go, I'm watching it. I'm thinking, at least turn around. Everyone talks about don't turn your back, particularly in this instance. But you know him. He just turned his back and said, I will take this responsibility upon myself. He did not even, and when he kicked it, he had the look of a bloke who said, yep, that's what I'm here to do.
He's
Is that his personality?
Yeah, we're talking about leadership. I was talking about leadership earlier. He's basically been one of the few leaders in the front half. Checkers has been consistent and he's really coming on. But when you're looking for selfless, team-orientated forwards, sometimes they can be hard to find. And Jamie's been one of those. He just hasn't played a lot of footy. But his skill's undoubted. But when he took that mark, and you could see in his face, like there was only one outcome, and he'd already had it in his head, and then he went and executed it, and it was he's a high talented individual, and it was his moment.
Hey Gary, try 40 metres for Elliott goal, if that.
48.
I tend to disagree.
Just over
that was
the 50.
Just over the 50. So a couple of reactions for me. So there's 5 buck stops here. The on-field leaders, the Charlie Dixon moment, the highlights in footy, which is great. Adam Saad's year, and then the 2 kicks. I love how Jamie Elliott conducted himself in the post-game interview. I don't know whether you read much into this, but he just looked like a man who, accepted the responsibility and said, yep. And I just thought there was a nice humility about it.
He's a very shy fella, and he is very humble.
And saying likewise with Jamarra Ugle-Hagan after the Western Bulldogs had a fantastic win, one of their best wins, if not their best win of the year against the Demons. Kicked 110 points against a team that rarely give up more than 70. He's kicked 5 goals. He kicked the belter just on the siren and the one to put him in front. It was in his 17th game, and then the interview post game, and he was deflecting, and there was none of this. There wasn't a false humility. It was a genuine humility, and you talk to Luke Darcy about him. So he just is a terrific young kid.
It takes time, to actually develop and to learn and to understand and to appreciate yourself and where you fit, and then how that reflects on the team. And one thing that's really hard to do from the outside in is to assess a situation like that. So why is Ugle-Hagan not playing? You need a forward. You need another guy who's up forward that can give you a target. Why isn't this kid that you picked up number 1 pick, why isn't he going in? There's so many different layers to that, but you've got to only the people in each club that are making these decisions, that are making the assessments, that are finding out how much friction they need to put on their players around the support and the arms that they put around them.
Yep.
And clearly, it seems like the Bulldogs have got the timing right with this. Yep. And the kid has taken the feedback in the right doses. He's felt supported. And now his talent's starting to come through. There's no guarantee on what's going to happen going forward, but his last little 6-week block has looked good, and the timing on when to put him back in, it looks like it's right. And there's been, that seems to be going in the right direction, which is great to see, because you like to see talents coming on and actually being, showing that resilience that underpins it.
Yeah, I reckon Adelaide Crows fans and coaching staff would say the same thing about Riley Thilthorpe, who's now, getting a look and starting to have an impact as well. So
we get impatient. We get really impatient, and things they don't cure like that. You need time.
We'll take a break, throw the lines open. I know we haven't got the certain games. We'll give you the opportunity if you want to raise them, but we'll get to how Sydney are tracking, the issues for Melbourne. Could they miss the top four? I'll answer that on the other side of this break. What's it mean from a top 8 point of view for the Western Bulldogs and their victory on the weekend? It's a last 4 weeks of an AFL season. I think it's going to be like not many we've had over the past few years, and we're looking forward to it. A couple of things on the Essendon Collingwood game which we haven't touched on, which will continue to be debated throughout the course of the day and probably days. Harrison Jones, did he have a chance to pass the ball off to take his full 25 seconds or whatever it was as he walked in? I'm sure it was Shield or Merritt off to his right. Just when you look at the replay again, the heads-up play for me is your pass.
Really?
Ball. Yep.
You would coach that?
I would absolutely ask the players to take it into consideration.
No, would you not take it into consideration?
Yeah.
Would you coach that?
I would coach it.
Not to take a set shot from 40 metres out directly in front.
Yeah, when I say to take it into consideration, I don't reckon Harrison Jones was thinking about it, right? So I'm saying, hey, weigh up what's there. If you think you can hit, if you know there's a minute 20 on the clock or whatever, and you've used your 25 seconds, and you think you can hit Zach Merritt standing there 50. When you look at the replay again,
I'm hearing you.
Yes, I would. Absolutely. Why wouldn't you do that?
Because I understand it, and I get the.
You're not talking spirit of the game, though, are you?
Well, no, I'm actually talking about what you're teaching. What are you actually? What's this? Not the spirit of the game, but what is the spirit of your intent to play and your will to win versus to save?
No, to win.
Yeah, no, but you're
to make a certainty of the win.
That's saving. I think you go and get it. You want to teach a young player to take the responsibility when he has that opportunity to finish.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But
and I would prefer to see that. But as we saw Jamie Elliott didn't have any other option. Well, he did have another option. He could have put it to the top of the goal square.
If you execute, you still win. You're still taking the opportunity to win.
Yeah, I understand.
Merritt goes back then and has the shot, and you've taken 60 seconds.
No, I understand all of it, but if you had that moment 9 times out of 10, or 10 times out of 10, you want Jones to take that shot and put the game out of reach.
Yeah, and I'm saying, no, I don't.
Yeah.
If Zach Merritt's sitting there 15 metres off on his own.
I think that there's not a lot of negative with it, other than the immeasurable impact on taking control and trying to actually put the game out of reach rather than just protecting.
And
what I'm
saying
is
you get the opportunity still to do both. You still get the opportunity to put the game out of reach because if you execute, because Merritt gets the shot at goal anyway.
Yeah, potentially.
Just a thought. The other one is Kyle Langford's been, I don't know, I haven't heard any of the discussion about this, and I'm not here to whack Kyle because I'm a fan, I like the way he played, but if he hasn't, he's got off a bit lightly if he's not being, and I'm sure he's feeling it. He's the one behind Jake Kelly and Jamie Elliott, and he's the one behind the ball, which
he's
the
one
have.
that has been pushed behind the ball. Yeah,
and he just had to take. It doesn't matter. He had to take Jake Kelly with him into the third row if he had to get that ball. He went like ship in the night. Went straight past. Didn't hit the ball. Didn't hit the body. Didn't hit anything.
Yeah, I reckon if he had his time again, he would love to, because he actually takes his eye off the ball, and spoiling is a skill. So he didn't execute the skill well. While we're on that game, Sam Draper was huge. Now you've been big on him. So if you've come at me with Ugle-Hagan, you were big on Draper.
To be fair,
long way.
The Wisp alerted me to the fact that this is last year, at the start of last year. So if you're a Collingwood fan who has been very pro, I don't know if there are Collingwood fans out there, but this has been the discourse. If you've been of the move Grundy on party. Because you've got Cameron and Cox, do you look at what happened yesterday and go, hang on a minute, maybe let's not move Grundy on? Draper had his way with those two boys.
Well, the idea of moving Grundy on was interesting in itself because that was never how it started. It started with hey, geez, they're doing it was a salary cap issue, or it was a trade issue, or it was where do you use all your bickies, I suppose. But then it grew some legs. But you reckon Brodie Grundy and Darcy Cameron, or Brodie Grundy and Mason Cox wouldn't make Collingwood a better team? I think that's a given. So and sometimes when players are missing, we forget what we're missing, don't we?
Garry, you're an idiot. No wonder you didn't coach. That's the stupidest. Well, I'm sorry. It might have won Essendon in the game. But anyway, Dave's in Melton.
I text that one. I just didn't want to say it.
That is your number. G'day, Dave.
G'day, boys. How you doing?
Good.
Just what you were talking about. You have to be absolutely crazy to trade Brodie Grundy. We've been smashed out of the centre since he's been out. It's not his ruck work. It's his second and third effort, Buck. I've never seen us get smashed out of the centre since Grundy's been out. It's been terrible.
Actually, one thing on that, Mason Cox was given the first centre bounce, and when there's very few. I suppose it's nearly a hierarchy. Like, so Darcy Cameron, who's been the number one ruck for the most part, started forward. Mason Cox starts as at the first centre bounce. Now, I don't know what the percentage breakdown was, but I've got no doubt that it has. Yeah, so you're up against Draper, and generally, I know that Broads has always done this, and ruckman. It's still one of the most combative positions. So you go the first centre bounce. You're the first player on your team that gets a chance to set the tone for the way that you're going to approach the contest. Yeah. That's the opportunity, the responsibility that a ruckman has. The very first contest of the game is yours. Yep. And how do you approach that? And I think it was interesting that happened. You know, it might have been actually trying to build Coxie up or give him the responsibility, but I actually thought Darcy Cameron played one of his quietest games, and Draper was brilliant. So what did you make of the Gawn v English clash?
Yeah, it was a good battle. He's the heir apparent, Tim English. No, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind anyway that he's tracking towards the sort of level of excellence that Mac's been able to get to. I like the way, I'm going to have a look at it tonight, but the way that he got forward on a couple of occasions. Teams have had some success against Melbourne now by going around Max, not going down the line.
Right.
At one stage they squared. Max was down the line and Tim English had gone deep forward. The ball got squared up to him once it got through. So, I think they played him really well. They both had good influences.
So English goes into that the Dogs play the Cats this weekend.
Yep.
Stanley ? The Geelong ruck roll. How are they going to handle that? The young fella came in off the bench. So Tim English goes in as a key factor, does he not? With a chance to establish himself here.
Sure.
Could he have an 8-week stretch where he really establishes himself as one of the best ruckmen in the comp?
Yeah, well, I think he's
already there.
I think he could put his All-Australian.
Just go to another level.
Yep. Maybe he's missed a bit too much footy, but he could put his case forward. And Max has had good success against the Cats over the journey. So that's the way that Tim should be looking at it. I did read where John Segler is.
He's played a couple of games in the VFL.
So maybe he might get his chance. Alex is in Northlake. G'day, Alex.
G'day, guys. Great show as usual. I felt we're dragged out of the bunker and uncharacteristically we're forced to make a statement as to how players that duck will be treated. Do you think they should also be forced out of the bunker to explain where a guy in the marking contest has his hands in the opponent's back and gives him a nudge just as the ball arrives to take the mark?
We talked about we did one of these games, I think, Bucks, you and I, where there was a real two hands in the back and there was an extension.
Tom Hawkins. First
quarter
quarter on the weekend.
So you are now allowed to have your hands in the back of an opponent, either to balance or to hold or whatever the case may be, and then the contention comes whether you extend those arms and push someone under the footy, and that's been, it's been around for a while. It used to be very clear cut. Don't touch the back, otherwise it's a free kick. Now you can.
Well, it went in that point where you even rest your hand on the shoulder and it was a free kick again. So the interpretations do ebb and flow. One of the interesting things with our game is the same rule, written exactly the same way, can be adjudicated in 4 or 5 different ways over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
So that creates grey area of its own.
Yeah, and as we said earlier with this, the ducking and the high, you can't legislate for a perfect game. We're never going to get a perfect 100% right or wrong.
Extra time, or do you take the draw?
I've always been a take of the drawer. I've just it doesn't happen that often. I just thought, that's a result. The draw is a result. 2 points apiece is the result. I know there's in this day and age there's a huge push for extra time, and I get that as well. And then I go real left field and think about set shots and all those silly things. Which after extra time,
a penalty shootout.
Yeah, if there's after extra time, for instance, and you still haven't got a result, then a penalty shootout would be great.
Well, how do you choose
then I reckon
how do you choose the blokes that have the shot on goal?
Then I reckon the opposition captain gets to choose the 5 players from the opposition team to take the penalty shootout. How good would that be? You'd be flat if they said,
It's like a reverse lineup.
We're going to think about the other 4, but Nathan, you're one of them for sure.
Mate, I've been a traditionalist, and I don't mind. I just you play full time, and if the scores are level, but I do like the idea of a gold, like the golden score. So I mean,
golden score, that's harsh. That's hard.
It has to be a goal, does it, or is it point?
Well, just what if you're kicking with a 10-goal win?
No, there's always going to be a what if. There's always going to be a what if, but I think that if you're going into the last quarter against the Breeze or with the Breeze, for instance, well, if the rule's already there, well, then you know that that's the situation. So you adjust how you would normally play to try and win the game of footy. And if it's that tight, I don't mind the idea of, our grounds are pretty neutral now. They're good surfaces, even though we spoke about Optus Stadium. They're good surfaces. We don't get gale force.
Golden goal at Marvel.
Marvel or the MCG. MCG's swirly anyway. Maybe if you cans or whatever, they might have a situation. But I just think it makes a fair bit of sense. It's always the coach that has the ball in his forward line that says that.
And with 4 rounds left, we've got a ladder with only 1 match separating 2nd from 7th and at least 3 teams fighting for the last finals spot. And I know you're getting a lot of questions around the specifics of round 23.
Yes.
Well, it's a fan-first era at the AFL, they tell us, so I reckon we'll get a locked-in round 23 sooner rather than later. Normally not until, I think, the week before.
What, sooner?
But I think a lot sooner than that, so that we won't have to wait too long to know when our teams... I told
someone you wouldn't get that until the start of the last round.
Historically, that has been the case, but I think we'll get a bit more certainty than that sooner rather than later. I wanted to start with the last game of the round out west yesterday. That is St Kilda and West Coast Saints doing what they had to do. But Brett Ratten, his post-match press conference, so interesting. I know you touched on it earlier, but he said the league might have actually dodged legal action after his side beat West Coast on a battered Optus Stadium surface. So Perth's had something like 40 mils of rain in the last 48 hours, back-to-back English Premier League exhibition matches on the Friday and Saturday before Sunday's AFL game. The AFL was concerned, so they moved the WA's under-18 state clash off the deck. That was to be played just prior to West Coast and St Kilda, but geez, it was players slipping everywhere. Plenty of players lost their feet in this game, and Ratten's mind was taken back to his former teammate Luke O'Sullivan, the Rhino, you remember, who launched legal action after a bad knee injury at Waverley Park in 93 when his leg gave way on a shifting surface.
Whose obligation? What's their obligation, the people who run the Optus Stadium Trust? What's the obligation? They're an entity that needs to make money, or is it to the code that brings in the biggest regular crowds?
Yeah. Well, their obligation, and the AFL's too, is to provide a safe playing surface and environment for their quote-unquote workers, isn't it?
Not just for AFL workers either.
For all sports.
Can you not anticipate that if you put 2 games back-to-back on a Friday and a Saturday
in
the middle of winter?
The weather was clearly a factor. Now, one side of the ground was better than the other. There was one side that was a complete...
That's the biggest issue, though. Like, if you're a player, and this is going way back to my dim dark days, but if you ran out and it was Moorabbin mud everywhere, well, that's okay. If you ran out and one side of the ground was solid and the other side, that's when you got the real issue.
Or the cricket pitch was hard and there was a quagmire around it.
Practice.
Well, that was an issue back when Sean Wren, when they had the pad for the centre bounce
knob.
He put his foot on that and did his one of his ACLs on that, I think, which would have been an issue.
Absolutely.
Ground,
that didn't last too much longer after that either. I really want to get Nathan's take on this. Compare the pair here, fellas. So they say there's no interest like self-interest, but I'll let you be the judge of this. I'm taking you to the Q clash.
Yep.
Brisbane 5-1 last quarter to roll the Suns, but Izak Rankine restricted to 10 touches and 1 goal, which came after the final siren, and he was well held by Brandon Starcevich, who's an absolute beast in the back half for Brisbane, super player. But let's have a listen to how both coaches assessed this particular matchup. He should have won the medal, Marcus Ashcroft medal. The other one says he's broken the rules and got away with several free kicks it should have been penalised for, and we're going to the AFL for clarification.
Well, I've said this quite a bit. We talk about high tackles, hands in the back, and even defensive tactics. There's a margin that you need to play on, and there's you have to blur the lines there to get the contest in your advantage. Now, I haven't seen a lot of the Starcevich Rankine contests, but I assume that he's wanted to be really physical with him, wanted to take him out of the game in some shape or form. He's played on the edge, not given the free kicks away that potentially were there technically. I'm assuming, but that's what happens in any tagging role. That's what you get. I mean. And in any sort of key defensive post, key attacker, like you're going to have in these marking contests, you play on the edges, and you've done it well if you execute without giving the free kick away.
The last time we were here, Luke Beveridge raised the treatment of Aaron Norton, you'll remember, and we went and looked at behind the goals vision
right.
and nothing was ever there. So the Suns are going to do the same here, but they're going to send vision in, I'm told, to the AFL to support their query, if that's the phrase we need to use. Now, specifically, Bucks, the concern is that Brandon Starcevich is not looking at the ball at ball ups and boundary throw-ins. He's got his back turned to the ball. He's basically got a lock on Izak Rankine, and they want to know if that's in the rules, which we know it isn't. So if there's enough instances of that, maybe they'll... I mean, I wonder if this actually has an effect. I mean, does it do anything? They'll have 3 different umpires this week, or is it just the coaches just feel better about raising?
It's not the first time it's happened. No, it's not the last.
It happens all the time.
It's probably a coach just defending his player and saying, I want him to have more space than he got, whether it's fair or otherwise. And if I can create a half a step for him next week because the umpires are going to give him a free kick in the first 5, well, then I'll try and do that.
Might be the difference. The AFL will discuss the reports of a Damien Hardwick VFL incident today. The Herald Sun last night reporting that he was being accused of verbally abusing Williamstown players during that VFL match at Punt Road Oval on Saturday, Garry. The paper actually quoted sources at the game saying Hardwick could be widely heard verbally abusing the opposition players after Ryan Mansell was felled. And I think there was a report for rough conduct in the thick of that as well. So Richmond provided a statement which read, the club acknowledges there was an exchange of words following an incident in the first quarter which led to a Williamstown player being reported for rough conduct, and the club considers the matter closed.
Well, Nathan and I were set to discuss this on air because we were discussing it off air. I don't know if any of that's true or all of it's true. And Nathan, from a coaching senior...
Why have you got that smile on your face?
Well, I'm just saying, if I'm a senior coach, and I've spoken to Alistair Clarkson about this, he found himself in a similar situation in a junior... I don't think there's... as I said, I don't know if it's true or not, but there's not much to be gained by shouting out at a game if, in fact, that is what happened.
Well, take the media focus away. Richmond don't need that.
Don't worry about the media.
No, take the media focus out. So Richmond don't need what's come out of it. So if one of your players... So Williamstown players, we assume he's been reported for the incident that we're talking about.
Allegedly,
right?
what's happened is that Ryan Mansell pushed a player into the fence. The player retaliated by hitting him from behind when he wasn't looking. There's a report for rough conduct, and Dimmer has then said what he said.
See, it might just happen that Dimmer was right there on the fence, like 5 or 10 metres away from this happening. And now, if you're telling me that, Gaz, that you are saying that Damien Hardwick sees a team, like a player of his who... Like you have this care for you, and you're a competitor. Yeah. That you have to not say anything.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, how often
Hang on. Don't nut me. You ask your players as a coach all the time. Discipline. Game's on the line. 2 points. You're in front by 2 points. And the bloke takes a mark and then gets flattened. Don't you dare go, emotion going, flatten him.
Dimmer wasn't
tongue.
He wasn't given a free kick away. There was no negative repercussion on that contest at all.
Well, Dimmer's not playing.
No, that's what I mean. There wasn't any negative repercussion. There wasn't anything from a discipline perspective that...
As I said, I don't know if this happened or not, but if it did, there is a negative.
Well, the club has confirmed there was an exchange of words. Have you ever, in your decade-long coaching career, have an instance like that happen?
Absolutely.
Where you said something to the opposition players?
I reckon there would have been, I can't think of anything specifically. But
you would have yelled out.
But if... Actually, there was one in particular where an opposition player, I know exactly who it is, I'm not going to talk about it specifically, but where there was a strike behind the play on one of our players who was KO'd, and I remember I made sure to walk past the kid who was in the opposition side, and I said, mate, that was soft as butter, and gave him a mouthful. And you
were the senior coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did he say?
Disgraceful.
He was sheepish as all hell. But that wasn't just because of me. It was because of what had happened. Now, he ended up getting 4 weeks at the tribunal, and it was there. When you see something like that, it's very hard not to stand up for your team.
I'm not saying it's not.
And for your players.
I'm 100% saying it's hard, but I don't
see,
know there's much to be gained by getting involved.
By being competitive.
Well, that's not about being competitive. Yeah. If you're watching your kid play next week, Bucks, that's more emotional than any of your players that you coached.
Yeah, no,
and something happens to him, guess what? You yelling out over the fence to an opposition player ain't going to help anyone.
No, and that's not.
Well, you're talking about you can't help yourself. You can help yourself.
No, you've taken it on a totally different tangent. You need to respect the opposition. You need to respect the umpires, and I think you can do that. I don't know if Dimmer was disrespectful in this instance or whether it was just competitive. Now we don't glean that because we're not there. But but you can still be combative and respectful.
Can you?
Yes, you can.
When you're a spectator.
Yep.
You can be combative, can you?
Yep.
When you're not playing, you can be a combative spectator.
And still respectful. Yep.
Crumbs.
So just quickly, circling back to Izak Rankine, remains unsigned, but it won't be the case for too much longer. Doesn't want to go anywhere. Will stay long-term at the Suns. And Essendon, the club that have come really hard. Now, whether it's a 100% legitimate offer or tactics to drive the price up or the like.
Say that again, I wasn't listening.
Really lucrative offer from Essendon.
To?
Izak Rankine, face of the dream time and the like, the whole package, the whole box and dice. But he will stay at the Gold Coast Suns long-term, not too far away from an extension there.